Hello and welcome to episode number 62 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're going over a commander deck tech for Gargos, Vicious Watcher.
Jim, you got it.
Is that his name?
You got it.
Okay, that's his name.
It's a mono green card, and you got it.
First try. Cool.
All right, so as promised, today we're going all over, talking all about my commander deck, Gargos, Vicious Watcher, mono green Hydras, and the name of the deck is Hydra Fight Club. So before we enter the Fight Club, we don't talk about Fight Club.
We don't talk about
We
that.
don't talk about
The
Fight Club.
first rule.
The first rule of Hydra Fight Club is you don't talk about Hydra Fight Club.
Yeah.
All right, before we talk about Hydra Fight Club,
Hail Hydra.
we're going to talk about our sponsor, Audible, audible.com. If you want to sign up for a free 30-day trial, you can head over to our affiliate link, www.audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness, and sign up for your free 30-day trial. That's right. If you like audiobooks, you can head on over there, sign up for a free 30-day trial. You can cancel before the 30 days is up if you want. But when you sign up, you get a free audiobook. That's right. You get a free audiobook from Audible's store that you get to keep forever, no matter how long you keep the subscription live. So that's right. Head over to audibletrial.com/hobbies and happiness to sign up for your free 30-day trial and get a copy of a free audio book today. All right, so that out of the way, we're talking all about my Hydra deck.
All about magic today.
Yeah, all about magic again. So today we're talking about a mono green deck. Next week, Jim's gonna talk about his mono blue deck. Yes. That's gonna be fun too. But before we talk about blue, we're talking about the better color, green. I had to get the reaction. I had to get the reaction. So, sure. All right. So, I know I've talked about the commander before, but Gargos is the Hydra King. So Gargos, Vicious Watcher, costs 3 and 3 green, so 6 mana for an 8/7 Vigilance Hydra. And Gargos has a couple of lines of text that are pretty important. The first being Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less to cast. So if you're not familiar, Hydras historically cost X and some amount of mana to cast. Okay, so you can cast them for essentially you can make them as big or small as you want normally. Okay, and so depending upon how much mana you spend to put into the Hydra is dictates how large the Hydras are going to be. So yep. Gargos gives you a free 4. Okay, so you can cast Hydras for 4 for free. Okay, so and that
is
do
huge.
not overlook that.
That
like
is huge.
That is huge. Okay,
A free essentially 4/4
a free
toughness coming
yep.
in.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. So I mean, if you think about it, if you just have a base. A vanilla Hydra where its mana cost is X. Okay. Mm-hmm. Normally there's like X and a green. Okay. So let's say there's that at least one.
X
okay?
double green.
So all right, we'll do X double green.
X
okay.
double green.
So X double green. So Gargos gives you the 4. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for 6 mana, 8 mana total. Okay. 8 mana total, 6 off of Gargos. Mm-hmm. Then the two green for this other Hydra. Okay, so that's a total of 8 mana. Gargos is an 8/7, giving you a free 4/4. So for 8 mana, you get 12 power and 11 toughness. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty good. So, but that's not the only thing Gargos has. Okay, so you can go the straight like Hydra tribal route. Like that's I think that's the easy way to go. Okay,
it's the less good route.
I agree, but it's a way to go.
Route.
It is a route, okay? His second line of texts, actually technically it's his third, I guess, reads, whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos, Vicious Watcher, fights up to 1 target creature you don't control.
That's the good part.
That is the good part. So I have I have a brawl deck, a historic brawl deck on Arena based around Gargos. It's not as good as this deck, but it's still fun to play. Okay.
Well, it definitely can't be as good.
No,
as-
right.
Because you're
Obviously,
very limited on
obviously,
cards.
right. But when I bring Gargos out, when I cast Gargos,
People just scoop.
Well, they don't know. They don't. What they do is they try and kill Gargos.
Oh, no.
So they target him.
Oh, no.
And so on the target, so the way Gargos works is as soon as you target one of my stuff, basically, okay, one of Gargos and his family, okay. Man, I got to think of a Vin Diesel family.
That's all we're going to say.
But anyway, as soon as you target, Gargos trigger goes on the stack. So as soon as that trigger goes on the stack, people blow up on Arena. because like normally what happens is I'll wait until they have a board presence, which at 6 mana, like you're waiting a little bit and you're giving your opponents time to develop a board state. Okay. Soon as I get him out, they target him, and then he fights, and then I will cast a cheap spell that targets, fights again.
Yep.
So for 8, I mean, at an 8/7, that's a lot. I mean, 7 toughness.
It's a lot of stats.
That is pretty big. So normally, like with a vanilla Gargos with 8/7, normally you can get off at minimum fighting 2 creatures, 2 decent sized creatures.
Yeah.
So the way that I built this deck was a bit of both, a little bit of both. I've got a good number of Hydras, but I also I really tried to abuse that fight mechanic, hence the name Hydra Fight Club. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Hydras. Okay. So this is not the Hydras. These are the Hydras. Okay. The Hydras are right here. So I'm going to go through, I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there's 11 Hydras in the deck, so not a ton. I'm pretty sure this is all of them. I had a couple more, but I cut some because I just don't think, like, in a deck like this, you want to do something more than just have like an X green Hydra that's all they do. Yeah. So these Hydra that are in the deck are very, very powerful. Like a good example of a Hydra that I cut is Feral Hydra. So Feral Hydra is X and a green. Okay, enters the battlefield with. I don't have this card in front of me, so bear with me. I think I'm gonna get this. Our editor will throw the card up on screen. Anyway, believe it's X and a green. Feral Hydra comes into the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. It's a 0/0 body. Okay. And then the only other thing that Feral Hydra has is you can pay 2 and a green to add a +1/+1 counter to Feral Hydra. And then it says any player can activate this ability. So it is a mana sink. Okay.
I really like that.
It is a mana sink, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I'm like, you got to do more than that. Like, so a mana sink is not a bad thing to have though. Okay. So that's a good thing, I think, but I was wanting more.
Yeah.
So that was a good example of a Hydra that I just cut.
I just like it because you can kind of play politics with it.
You're very
and being
good.
like,
Very
guys,
good.
look, I have this Yavimaya out. You all have green.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I need
true.
someone.
Yeah.
I will block his creature. I just
Yeah.
need someone to dump it into it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So as soon as you're like, I like this card.
Yeah.
I like
yeah.
it.
But however, I'm going to be having humongous Hydra that I don't think the politics game, that Hydra is not really going to do much.
Yeah.
But it is a good point, though. So the first Hydra I want to talk about is Steelbane Hydra. This is the Turtle Hydra.
Yes.
I love this.
One of my favorites.
I love this one.
Probably my favorite Hydra.
Yeah, so I love the art on this one too. So Steelbane Hydra, X and 2 green for a Turtle Hydra. So 0/0, Steelbane Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. That's like standard what you're going to see for Hydras, right? But it's got an activated ability where you can pay 2 and a green and remove a +1/+1 counter from Steelbane Hydra. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. In a format like Commander, this is huge. This is definitely, like, I think one of the best Hydras in the game, I think.
Yeah, hands down.
I really think so.
Artifact and enchantments are huge.
Especially in a format like
Tend
Commander.
Tend to pretty much always be ramp oriented for artifacts or protection based. So then you blow that up and then you're like, all right, you no longer have that protection.
Yep. And so in a deck where I mean, there is a humongous +1/+1 counter synergy in this entire deck, and you'll see it. There are so many easy ways where I will remove those counters, but then I will put those counters right back on Steelbane Hydra.
Yep.
So I can, in theory, there's no number of artifacts and enchantments I won't be able to blow up with Steelbane Hydra. So the next Hydra, one of my favorite Hydras in all of Magic, is Colonian Hydra. Colonian Hydra costs 3 and 2 green. Does it though? Does it though?
No, it doesn't.
When you think that I can cast a lot of these Hydras for 1 or 2 mana, like it's mind blowing.
It's so nuts.
So this is an example of a Hydra that I can cast for 2 mana and get a 4/4 body. So Colonian Hydra, 3 and 2 green for a 0/0 Hydra with trample. So trample is huge, okay? And there's other ways that I need to give my creatures trample, because it doesn't do me any good if I have a 20/20 and I can't get through to my opponents. Okay. So a 0/0 trample, Colonian Hydra enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever Colonian Hydra attacks, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Each creature. I don't think there's anything more I need to say about that card. I don't think there's really anything.
Turn all your big stuff
even bigger. I mean, is it a win more card? It absolutely is.
No doubt.
It absolutely
But
is.
it's not just that. Like, we go back and talk about the Steelbane.
Exactly.
Well, if there was ever that time where you're like, okay, I just need to get a couple more counters on it, this just gets you those couple counters.
Yeah.
Very good combo.
This deck can really win the game almost out of nowhere when you're just making stuff huge very, very fast.
Yeah, green does that.
Exactly. And this is another example of a Hydra that does it. Primordial Hydra. X and 2 green for a 0/0 Hydra. Primordial Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on Primordial Hydra. Another doubling counter. Okay. Primordial Hydra has trample as long as it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it.
That's difficult.
Yeah, right, exactly. but again, trample, like I've said, and is very important in a deck like this. Okay. The next Hydra is this is a Hydra that I almost cut, but is too good to not include. It's Ulvenwald Hydra. Okay. 6 mana, 4 and 2 green. Okay. Or 2 green for a star Hydra with a reach. Okay. Ulvenwald Hydra's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Okay. Now, when Ulvenwald Hydra enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So a land tutor on a Hydra. Okay. Very good.
Oh, it's just any land.
It's any land.
Oh, okay.
It's any land. So there's a couple. There's a couple of lands I'd probably want to get in the deck. Okay.
Yeah. We'll get to them.
We'll get to them. Yeah. So the next Hydra is Hungering Hydra. X and a green. 0/0 Hydra with Hungering Hydra enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Hungering Hydra can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. Whenever Hungering Hydra is dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So again, it's another Hydra that can get bigger with time, which is a theme, obviously. Okay. Lifeblood Hydra. X and 3 green. Trample. 0/0 Hydra. Enters the battle with X +1/+1 counters on it. When Lifeblood Hydra dies, you gain life and draw cards equal to its power. Lifeblood Hydra was one that I was thinking about cutting, but again, the card draw is very big. So this is one where you could gain 20 life and draw 20 cards without much work, to be honest. All right, the next Hydra is a very dangerous Hydra, Hydra Omnivore. An 8/8 Hydra. Whenever Hydra Omnivore deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. This
like that
card,
one.
This card can win the game out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You get a lot of counters on this.
Get them huge and
get
just
them
whack
huge
'em.
and then just hit somebody. Yeah, you will be. You're going to be a target. You get a 10/10, you're a target, so don't be surprised.
That's why I play with tutus, Dan.
Yeah. The next one, this is a new Hydra, and one that I like, okay, because this is ramp. This is Hydra ramp. It says Rampant Rejuvenator, 3 and a green. Rampant Rejuvenator enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Okay, so it starts with 2. Could have more, but this next one is very nice. When Rampant Rejuvenator dies, search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is Rampant Rejuvenator's power, then put them onto the battlefield. Put them on the battlefield, then shuffle. Oh, wait a minute. It's not tapped. Oh, that's not tapped. Better. That's not tapped, guys.
It's an even more good card.
I just realized that.
Wow.
Yeah, that is really good. Yeah, I just picked that card up not that long ago. It's pretty cheap. It's a pretty cheap card. But I'm like, this is a perfect home for that card. All right, so the next one is the only thing I got to worry about that card, that Hydra isn't dying. Okay, which there are ways to sacrifice it in the deck. Not very many. I'm more worried about keeping my stuff alive than dead. Okay, there's like one card that'll help me kill the Hydras in the deck, and we'll get there. Yeah. All right, Voracious Hydra, X and 2 green for a 0/1 Hydra with trample. Voracious Hydra enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it. When Voracious Hydra enters the battlefield, choose 1. Double the number of +1/+1 counters on Voracious Hydra, or Voracious Hydra fights target creature you don't control. So this is a Hydra that fights on ETB, or you can make it even bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, again, if you think about Gargos is on board, okay, 2 green, you get a 4/5 body that you could turn into an 8/10, or you can have the 4/5 fight.
Can I see him?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he comes in with. Oh, you double choose, all right, so it becomes an 8/9.
Yes. Did I say
8/10? Yeah. Because it's doubling the counters that are on him.
Oh, correct.
Which puts him to 8/9.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
My mistake.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's either double the counters or it fights.
Next card.
Yeah. The next Hydra is Protein Hydra. X and a green. 0/0 Hydra. Protein Hydra enters the battle with X+1/+1 counters on it. If damage would be dealt to Protein Hydra, prevent that damage and remove that many +1/+1 counters from it. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is removed from Protein Hydra, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it at the beginning of the end step.
Yeah.
So you remove the counter and then you double the counters, basically.
Yeah.
Not quite, but close to it. Yeah.
Still good.
And then the last Hydra, Mana Gorger Hydra. 2 and a green for a 1/1 Hydra with trample.
It by name.
Whenever a player casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra.
This one. Oh, okay.
Yeah. This Hydra can get out of hand real fast.
Yeah.
Especially in a 4-player match.
Oh, yeah. It's just cast a spell?
Cast a spell. Wow. It's as soon as you cast a spell.
Wow, okay.
That's all it is. And that is pretty good. All right, so Jim, of those Hydra, if you had to pick a favorite, excluding Gargos, which one would you pick?
I am a huge fan of Steelbane, right? But as we were going through them, and I remembered this card specifically by name. I just didn't remember what it did.
Okay, yeah.
Mana Gorger is, there have been so many times where I know this card's out on the field, but I just like keep casting stuff and I'm like, oh, whatever, I could just kill it later. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, someone just got beat in the face for 20 damage and just gets ridiculously big.
Yep.
So I love when I'm teamed up with the person who has this card, and I'm just like slinging spells all over the place.
Which was like last year at Gen Con.
Yeah.
When we were playing a lot of Commander.
Yes, I would say Mana Gorger or Steelbane. Yeah. Like Steelbane is just so
I love that card so much. When that card came out in it was the Commander it was not the Commander decks, but it was around Eldraine. It wasn't the Commander decks, it was the Brawl decks.
Oh, Brawl.
That's when it came out. Wow. Because that was in the Bant Commander.
Chulane?
What was it?
Chulane,
that's the one it was. I believe that's the deck.
Dude, that Chulane's good too.
I want to build a Chulane. I want to build a Chulane deck so bad.
And so was the Esper lady. I forget her name. The fairy one. Whenever you cast like artifact, enchantment, like make a 1/1 fairy or something like that.
All of those were really good.
Yeah.
Those decks are really good. So when I saw Steelbane, I'm like, oh man, that's gonna go perfect in Gargos, and it's good. It's really really good. So yeah, I think, to be honest, my favorite I think is Colonian Hydra. I love the art on that card.
Is that the HP and draw card one? Which one's cool?
No, that's when it attacks, double the plus one counters on every creature you control.
Yeah.
Very much a win more, but I love the art. I love the artwork on that card so much. So that's got to be one of my favorite Hydras. There's still there's plenty of other Hydras that you can throw in this deck, but those are the ones that I opted for. So with that, that's all the Hydras we want to talk about. We're going to talk all about the ramp category real quick. I
think we talk about the fight cards.
You want to talk? So I want to talk about the ramp cards just to get them kind of out of the way. Okay. I want to save all the other cards for last.
Okay.
So ramp, the artifact ramp is pretty standard. Okay, you've got Soul Ring, Arcane Signet. I have Mind Stone, Commander Sphere. So those 4 cards are pretty standard. Okay, in Commander Sphere, I have a Secret Lair Commander Sphere.
I was gonna say, you know who that is, right?
It's from the D&D show.
Yeah, it's the Dungeon Master.
Yeah. I love the artwork on
from
that
the
card.
old school
D&D. Is it a TV show?
Series or movie? I forget exactly.
But yeah, Commander Sphere. So those 4 pretty standard. Probably one of the best artifact, the ramp cards in the deck is Emerald Medallion. Emerald Medallion is a 2-cost artifact, which says green spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Yeah.
So a reduction in cost for literally every single card in the deck.
Yeah.
So Emerald Medallion is a rock star in a mono green deck. Okay. And then probably one of the best artifacts in all of Commander is the Great Henge. Great Henge is 7 and 2 green. Okay. If you don't know what it does, it's a legendary artifact where it says this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So very often than not, the only time we're pretty much ever going to cast this is for 2 green. Okay. And then also has, you can tap it, add 2 green mana, and you gain 2 life. And then has whenever a non-token creature you control enters the battlefield or enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card.
That draw card's huge.
So there's 2 things it's doing. 3. I mean, it's giving me mana, putting counters on my stuff, okay, which this deck is all about +1/+1 counters, and drawing a card. So very, very huge. All right, and then the rest of the ramp, we have Tangled Florahedron, the modal dual face. Is that what they're called? MDFCs?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a land, and then on the other side, it's a mana dork. So it's really great. Llanowar Elves. And then I have in here Fyndhorn Elves. I am thinking about swapping out Fyndhorn Elves for Arbor Elf. It's another mana dork, but instead of tapping for green mana, I can tap it and then untap target force. Because I'm pretty sure that's Arbor Elf. I think it's Arbor Elf. If not, my editor will correct me. But in a deck where I can basically have all my lands be forests, I kind of thought Arbor Elf would be nice. And then the other spells, let's talk about the sorceries. Now, these are all pretty standard as well. 3 visits. Again, pretty standard in any green commander deck. 1 in a green sorcery. Search your library for a forest, put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle. So not tapped. So it's rampant growth, but better. Speaking of rampant growth, we do have rampant growth. 1 in a green sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. And then we have Migration Path. Migration Path is huge. It's a better explosive vegetation. Okay, so 3 in a green, you can search your library for 2 basics, put them on a battlefield tapped, then shuffle, but also has cycling on it. So cycling for 2, which is really nice. So if I draw at the end of the game where I've got a ton of lands on the battlefield, I can just cycle it instead. Then we have Skyshot Claim, another 4 mana ramp, search for 2 forests, put them on the battlefield, not tapped, which is great. And then Cultivate, 2 in a green.
Good card.
Great card. Search your library for 2 basic lands, 1 battlefield tapped, 1 into your hand. And then I've got 2 creatures that are ramp. Kadoma of the West Tree. Perfect card for this deck. Okay, so 2 in a green for a legendary creature spirit. 3/3 with reach. Modified creatures you control have trample. That's huge in a deck like this. So modified creatures, if you have a +1/+1 counter, if the creature has an equipment and also artifact. Auras, enchantment auras. That is what makes the creature modified. Okay, so basically all of my creatures have trample in a deck like this. Okay, and then it has whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. So ramp on a creature is perfect.
Does that also count mutate? I don't remember.
It does not.
Why doesn't that count mutate?
That is not a modified creature.
Yes, it is.
Because when so I think the reasoning is when you mutate, it's a new creature.
Except it has like an enchantment from the previous.
No, but it's not. No, it's the same creature. It's one creature.
Yeah, I know it's one creature.
It is one creature.
You just add the ability of the previous creature.
Right. So it's considered one creature. I know. When I did that on Arena, I had Gemraiser.
Yeah.
Gemraiser. I mutated something. I think I mutated. I mutated a Llanowar elf.
Oh. Okay.
Because a Llanowar elf is an elf. It's not a human.
Yeah.
So it's a non-human.
Yeah.
Okay, so you could do that. So I mutated a Llanowar elf with Gemraiser, blew up an artifact.
Yeah.
And then I had Kodama out. I attacked, and I'm like, I know this isn't going to work, but I really hope it does.
it should.
And it didn't work.
The fact it doesn't, I think, is a little ridiculous.
I think
whatever.
I think it's ridiculous too, but whatever.
Whatever.
And then the last one is Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. Perfect card to have in this deck. So Selvala 1 and 2 green for a 2/3 legendary creature elf scout. This is the better Selvala in my opinion, which I would say that. It has whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. To be honest, nobody else at the table is going to be drawing off of Selvala when I'm playing this deck. I don't think it is. Okay. And then Selvala also has you can pay green and tap Selvala, add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So Selvala is card draw, but also ramp. So that's why I put Selvala in the ramp category because, again, let's assume Gargos is out. Vanilla, 8/7, pay a green, tap Selvala, add 8 green mana. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So so if you had to pick a card from here, Jim, who would you? I know.
Terrible. Let me see these garbage cards. He's like, what ramp cards do you like? I'm like, none, Dan. I don't like none. Great Engine's broken.
It is.
This one's so good.
Emerald Medallion is so good.
I mean, when can you ever go wrong with that?
With
one,
Soul
right?
Ring, yeah.
Aside from those ones, just like the givens.
Yeah, I think Emerald Medallion is the best. It's tied between Emerald Medallion and Great Henge.
I'm like, you got to give it to this one. Like, it's the fact that, this one's so good early on,
it is.
Because like this really does you nothing early game.
Yeah, right.
When
Emerald Medallion is just always good.
Yeah, in Magic and it's in card games in general, it tends to be better to be faster, right? So Emerald Medallion just is better.
Yeah.
It's just Great Henge is so great.
So great. It so is. There's a reason that's a $50 card.
Yeah.
Emerald Medallion is such a good card in this deck, one of my favorites. And honestly, Selvala is probably one of my favorite Magic cards.
You know what, Dan? At the end of this, if you're like, see, guys, Jim really likes green cards. I'm like, no, Dan, I just had to pick one.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So now I want to talk about card draw.
I'll put this one over there.
Yeah. So we'll talk about card draw next, which, again, really hard to do in a green deck, right?
No, not really.
I know. I was being very facetious. So the first one is just a great card, Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library is an enchantment for 1 and a green.
I'm picking that one for my favorite.
Yeah. At the beginning of your draw step, you may draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card on top of your library. So,
eat the 8 life.
Eat
it. Just eat it.
I mean, especially in a deck where I can gain that life back pretty easily.
Yeah.
Assuming I shouldn't say pretty easily, but there's ways to do it. Okay. Having Sylvan Library turn 2 is just so good. So good. So let's see what else do we have. So the next card is Garruk's Uprising. enchantment for 2 and a green. When Garruk's Uprising enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample. So there's a card called Primal Rage. It's an enchantment for 1 and a green, and all it says is creatures you control have trample. I almost put it in the deck, but I'm like, when I saw Garruk's Uprising, I'm like, this is just way better. For 1 more mana, I already give... This is power creep.
Yeah. 50% more mana, better card.
Much better card. But also... I'm not done, right? Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card.
Yes, better. Instantly better.
So Garruk's Uprising, if Gargos is on the field, draw a card.
Yep.
And then when you cast a big thing, draw another card.
Yep.
Yeah, really, really, really good. Really good. Next one, Drum Hunter. So this is a really great card that I found relatively recently. It is a 2/2 human druid warrior creature for 3 and a green, so 4 mana. At the end of your turn, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater, you may draw a card. And you can tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool. So it's a 4 mana dork with at your end step, if you control a creature with power 5 or greater, you get to draw a card.
Yeah.
So really hard to get there in this deck, right? But the ability to draw a card at the end step, it's like having Monarch almost. So that's really, really good. So I'm a big fan of Drum Hunter in this deck. The downside is it's 4 mana, but it's also only 4 mana.
Yeah. It's really difficult to get to 4 mana in green.
Yeah, but like in this deck, like getting to 4 is kind of my goal almost. Like once I get to 4, I'm like, all right, I'm pretty solid. It's getting to 4 as quickly as I can. Once I get there, then I'm like, all right, I'm going to be in a pretty good state for this game. Okay. All right, the next card I want to talk about is Greater Good. It's another enchantment for 4 mana, 2 and 2 green. Sack a creature, draw cards equal to sacrifice creature's power, then discard 3 cards. I mean, I don't really care if I'm discarding 3 cards when I'm drawing 8 cards. So Sat Gargos, this is what I was talking about Lifeblood Hydra, okay, and then also Rampant Rejuvenator, okay. This is the 1 sack outlet that I have in the deck. So not super worried about it, but it is nice to have a sack outlet like this where I'm drawing a lot of cards. So Greater Good is very, very, very good in a deck like this. All right, Inspiring Call. This is a great card in the deck. So it's an instant for 2 and a green. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. So I have another pile here called like Protection. Okay, but I decided to put this one in card draw. Because it's going to be drawing a lot of cards off of Inspiring Call. So Inspiring Call is great. Another instant is Hunter's Insight. 2 and a green, another 3 mana. Choose target creature you control. Target.
Important.
Target. Important. Gargos, I can fight off of it. So if I choose Gargos, now granted, you can do this immediately before damage. So after blocks are declared, cast Hunter's Insight, target something, Gargos fights, and then choose target creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. So you can draw a lot of cards off of Hunter's Insight. So this is a 3 mana, draw 8. I mean, can you imagine that? Like 3 mana, draw 8. Like that's a good rate. That's a great rate. That's insane. All right, another instant is Verdant Birth. I really wanted to have this card in the deck because I think this is another enabler where I'm fighting. Okay, so it's an instant. Until end of turn, target creature gains when this creature dies, return it to its owner's hand, and then it has draw card. So I'm drawing off of the card, but also I will fight. Now, assuming, because when you cast, so you got to think about this when you're casting these instants. Okay, you cast a spell, target, fight trigger goes on the stack. Okay, so you have the card, and then you have the fight trigger. Okay, the fight trigger needs to go off first. So Gargos, assuming you cast this on Gargos, okay, Gargos needs to live after the fight for the Verdant Rebirth to go off. Okay, so the draw card will still go, but if Gargos is dead, then Verdant Rebirth doesn't see him. So then that he will not go back to your hand. Yeah. So this is like an enabler, but also good for protection as well. So if somebody's already targeting Gargos and you know he's going to die, you can cast Verdant Rebirth, draw, but then get Gargos back to your hand instead of having you go to the command zone.
Yeah.
Okay, so Verdant Rebirth is a great card in this deck. Okay. The last two for card draw are probably the two best card draw cards in the deck, I think. The first is Season of Growth. Season of Growth is a 2-mana enchantment from M20, so it costs 1 and a green. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. So that's pretty good. Not bad.
Okay.
The better part is this. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. Whenever I cast anything that targets my stuff, I draw off of it. So good.
Yeah, I'm like, how is that card going to be better than Sylvan Library? And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So Season of Growth is really, really good in a deck like this. Sylvan Library is a much better card, but in a deck like this, Season of Growth, it can be really good. That can go out of hand. That can get out of hand real quick.
Yeah, that one's really good.
And then the last one, I love this card so much. I remember when this was announced for Kaldheim. I'm pretty sure we talked about this in the in our group chat, or in the server for a Discord server. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, a 1/1 for 4 mana, 3 and a green. This spell can't be countered. Indestructible, which in a deck like this is huge. Toski, Bearer of Secrets, attacks each combat if able. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So that's great. Like having whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card is fantastic. But having a 1/1 indestructible body on a deck, in a deck where I can just give a lot of counters and make him bigger and bigger and bigger and give it trample,
it gets better,
is so good. So good. I mean, that's one of the reasons I really wanted Toski in this deck. I'm like, because making my stuff have indestructible, I mean, making your stuff have indestructible is already an amazing effect, especially in Commander. Okay. But a deck like this, having something that's indestructible when I'm fighting a lot of stuff is huge. Is huge. So do you see anything that you like better than Sylvan Library? Is the question.
This one is really good in this deck,
Season of
but
Growth?
I think if I'm going to just go for card in general, this Garruk's Uprising is another amazing one.
So good.
But I just have to give it to Sylvan
Library.
Library.
Is so good. It's such a good card.
Pay the life, draw those 2 cards, especially if they're bad. Like if they're bad, I think you definitely pay the 2 life. Or the 4 life? For the 4 life each card, whatever one it is. So that way you just get them out of the way so you can start drawing better cards. Because otherwise it's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to put those back on top and then, oh, let me take these 3 cards and then I just want the new card and then you put those other 2 back there. It's like just spend the 8 life, get the bad ones out of there. Discard them at end of turn if you need to so you can start seeing better cards.
Yeah, Sylvan Library is such an amazing card. All right, let's touch on the lands. Okay, I want to talk about the lands real quick.
Yeah.
So I'll
talk about this one.
Yeah, I had to make sure all the basic lands matched. Okay, so those are all the basic.
We should get
lands.
you white border lands.
Get white border lands.
White border basics.
Yeah.
People love it.
Yeah.
And hate it.
Yeah. All right, so one of the first ones that I want to talk about, Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth.
Yay!
A legendary land. Each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. So, what do you think about Yavimaya?
I love the card in Modern.
In Modern?
Yeah, just because I play it in Tron.
Oh,
which some people don't.
Yeah.
I personally like it.
Yeah.
Just so then that way you don't have to have out as many forests out on the for basics, and then you're just like, oh, I can now just tap any of these lands for forest if I need.
Yeah, so Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth is great in a green commander deck, especially when there are other cards that look at them or force you control, which in this deck I only have 1 card like that. Okay.
And sometimes a card will only tap for colorless, and then you turn it into a forest, and then you start tapping it for color.
Correct. So that's, I mean, Yavimaya is just a great card, especially in like any commander deck, to be honest. So making all of my lands being, if they just tap for colorless to be able to tap for green is great.
Do you ever think they're going to finish that cycle?
Yeah, they have to.
Do you think so?
I think so. I think so.
Because when did Urborg come out?
Long time ago.
Yeah,
Urborg was a long time ago.
I don't even know when. Yeah, but yeah, it's been a while.
I don't
would
think they'll
love-
ever do islands.
What?
That would be that would just that'd be so good.
Dude, I want to see them make one for red so I could play Chain Lightning and everyone just starts tapping two to copy the card. And I'm like, we're all doing it.
They have to complete that cycle though.
I would love it.
They would have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Maya's great. Balligator Recovery. It's a modal MDFC, so back half is a land. This is a sorcery, 2 and a green. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's Eternal Witness on a land.
Yeah.
Basically.
He just wanted to put it in land because he didn't have another spot.
Yep, pretty much. Karn's Bastion, great card. Tap it for a colorless, but also pay 4, tap it to proliferate.
Ooh.
Proliferate in a deck that all about +1/+1 counters is huge. And if you're not familiar, proliferating, choose any number of permanents and or players. Then give each another counter of each kind they already have there. Works on poison counters too.
I was gonna say, I'm like, do you have any way to infect in this
There
deck?
is an infect Hydra. It's Phyrexian Hydra.
Yeah.
I did not include it in the deck.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, I am not Mr. Infect. But you certainly could go that route. Bonder's Enclave, great land. I like this land, especially in a deck where I have a lot of big creatures. Tap it for colorless. Also, pay 3, tap to draw a card. Activate this ability only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. That's really hard to do in this deck. Okay. One of the best lands printed in all time, Besager Who Endures.
Oh my goodness.
Legendary land, tap it for a green. You can channel it if you don't know what it does. This is
I want
such
this
a great
card to be banned so badly in Modern.
Channel, pay 1 and a green, discard Besager Who Endures, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for a land card with a basic land type, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. So if you have Gargos, that can pay just a green to channel Besager. And then get Besager back. Oh, dude, Besager's such a great card.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
It's stupid.
Besager Who Endures is pretty much going to go in any green commander
why
deck.
they made this card, man.
Like, it is hands down the best land from all of them.
Yeah, hands down.
Hands
Even if
down.
they made it to where it's just destroy artifact or enchantment, like the card would still see a lot of play.
Oh, absolutely.
But then they're also like, oh, it also destroys land.
Yep.
Have fun.
Yeah. All right. And then we've got Reliquary Tower. You have no max hand size. Great one. Orin Reef the Vastoid. This is a good card.
Yeah.
Okay. Orin Reef the Vastoid enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a green. Also, you can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. Not under your control either. So you could do it for your opponents as well if you wanted. All right. One of the best lands in the entire deck. No, I'm just kidding. This is Lair of the Hydra. I only did it for the flavor because it's a Hydra deck. Okay. It says, I've got the dungeon module one. Such a great one.
Yeah, the D&D.
The D&D version. If you control 2 or more other lands, Lair of the Hydra enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it for a green. You can pay X and a green. Until end of turn, Lair of the Hydra becomes an XX green Hydra creature. It's still land. X can't be 0.
I would love if that still worked with Gargos, which it doesn't.
Oh, yeah. If there was
It's
a way
an
you could do
activated
that.
ability,
Yeah.
even though it turns into a Hydra. You can be
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a Hydra, but
Yeah.
you're not casting.
Yeah.
You're just activating an ability.
All right, the next one is Mosswort Bridge. Hideaway. This land enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards. So it's Hideaway 4. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest on the bottom of your library. You can tap it for green, but then you can pay green and tap it. You may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater, because that's hard to do. So I could potentially cast a big thing for
You're
free.
like 2 mana dorks and Gargos.
Yep. The next one of the best lands in the deck is Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx.
Yeah.
So Nykthos, it's a legendary land. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can pay 2 and tap it, choose a color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So in a monocolored deck, Nykthos is just
Like
such a
the
great
best
card.
land.
Absolutely. Blighted Woodland, this is a ramp. You can tap it for colorless, pay 3 green and tap, sack it. You can search the library for 2 basic land cards, put it on battlefield tapped. Castle Garenbrig, and a creature deck is great. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. You can tap for green, or you can pay 4, 2 and 2 green, tap it to add 6 green mana to your mana pool, but you can only use that for creatures, only for creature spells.
Okay.
So pretty good. This is like a pet card of mine. This is called Tyrite Sanctum.
Okay.
From call time, you can tap it, add a colorless. You can pay 2 and tap it. Target legendary creature becomes a god. In addition to its other types, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Now you can pay 4 and tap it. Sacrifice Tyrite Sanctum. Put an indestructible counter on target god.
Yeah,
so you can turn a legendary creature into a god and then give it indestructible. Or if you're playing with any of the gods, you can make him indestructible.
Yep.
Which is pretty good. Which the gods having indestructible is kind of a thing that they have. Okay, and then definitely one of the best lands printed in the past 30 years is Urza Saga. Yeah, so Urza Saga is an enchantment land. This card is like going in like all of my decks.
Yeah.
Such a good card. It's an enchantment saga. Chapter 1, Urza Saga gains add colorless. Chapter 2 gains 2, pay 2, tap it, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And then chapter 3, search your library for an artifact with mana cost 0 or 1, put them on a battlefield, then shuffle. Soul Ring, oh yeah. Got Soul Ring is a big one, but then the 2 of the best artifacts in the deck, which we will get into. Which, let's talk about the next. Now, do you have a favorite land? I know the lands are kind of.
All right, the Urza Saga one is just stupidly great.
Yeah, stupidly good.
And obviously our boy Beseiju, which I hate so much. Yeah, but I just know it's too good. And then Nexthos is just so good in a monocolor deck.
Yep. All right. Okay. So this is the protection pile. So we're going to talk about the protection cards, and then which one is this? This is the Fight Club. Yeah. Okay. So all right. So we'll talk about protection first. Okay. So I've got a good stack here for protection. Okay. In a deck where you're having humongous things and you are becoming a target, you need ways to protect. Okay. And especially with Gargos, there's multiple ways of protection that are akin to fighting. Okay. So we're going to talk about 2 artifacts. The first one being a pretty common one, Darksteel Plate. Darksteel Plate 3 cost artifact equipment. It has indestructible. You can equip for 2, and then it says equipped creature has indestructible. So it itself is indestructible, giving another creature you control indestructible as well. Great. Okay, one of the best equipment especially in a monocolor commander deck, Commander's Plate. A 1-cost equipment where it says, equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity.
I really don't know if there's anything better for a monocolor deck.
I know. It's so good, which is basically
protection from 4 colors. Okay.
Like if you're not and I'm in green, but and the thing is, especially in mono green, nobody else, there's not going to be many other people playing mono green. And then even if they are,
I'm going to just play this in colorless.
Yeah. They don't have stuff that's going to be able to destroy or target your stuff, really.
Yeah.
Which there is stuff in green, which we'll get to fighting. But other than that, okay, fight me. But if Commander's Plate is attached to Gargos, Gargos is an 11/10.
Yeah, it's a big boy.
It's crazy. So Commander's Plate, you can pay 3 to equip it to your commander, or you pay 5 to equip it to any other creature.
Yeah.
So that 5 equip cost is big, but 3 is not that bad. But still, oh my goodness. All right. So these other protection cards are all instants. So these are all instants. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 8 instants that are in the protection category.
Yeah.
The first one is Withstand Death. It's 1 green where it has target creature is indestructible this turn.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. Targets give something indestructible. So already that's big.
The targeting matters.
Targeting matters.
Fighting stuff.
The biggest thing, and I've said it already a few times, but you got to remember triggers.
Yep.
And how your triggers are going to stack. So when something goes on the stack, you just got to keep track of where you are on the stack. Somebody targets your stuff. Okay, Gargos fight triggers on the stack.
Yep.
If you respond to that by giving your stuff indestructible, hexproof, whatever the case, that goes on top. And then you have another trigger, a fight trigger that goes on top. Yep. So the stack can get out of control pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it's keeping track of that.
I love it.
It's so good. It's so great. I love
so
it too.
Good.
So the next one, this is great. Vines of Vastwood. 1 green. It has kicker green. You may pay an additional green as you cast a spell. It says target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So it gives your stuff hexproof. Mm-hmm. If Vines of Vastwood was kicked, that creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So cheap, 1 mana. You could put two into it to give it +4/+4, but still great. This next card, so good, printed in Kamigawa, Tamio Safekeeping. 1 green mana, instant, target permanent you control gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. You gain 2 life. So target permanent. It's not just creature, it's target permanent. So giving it indestructible and hexproof and gaining 2 life. The gaining 2 life isn't something to write home about, but target permanent is really good.
Yeah.
Now, again, thing to remember is Gargos looks at target of creatures. So keep that in mind as well. Snakeskin Veil, 1 green, instant, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. Sheltering Word, 1 and a green, so 2 mana. Target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Ooh. You could gain a lot of life off of this card.
Yeah.
But again, the biggest thing is giving your stuff hexproof. So again, protecting it. Blossoming Defense, 1 green mana. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn.
Or Aether Revolt, whatever.
Yeah, Aether Revolt. Revolt, yep. But again, giving your stuff hexproof.
Yeah, I remember that card.
Another one is like Ranger's Guile. Just give your stuff +1/+1 and gain hexproof, I think. But those cheap enablers to fight but also protect your stuff.
This bad boy was played in Team Energy.
Yeah, that's a great card. Blossoming.
Oh yeah, this is Kaladesh. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, next one is Heroic Intervention. I think you know what this card does. 1 in a green, instant, permanent you control, gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
One of the best cards in the whole game.
Absolutely. Okay, this last card is such a great card. Newly printed in the new Capenna Commander decks.
Okay.
This is Silk Guard. X in a green. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to X target creatures you control. Auras, equipment, and modified creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. I was playing this deck in a 1v1 just to get it out and kind of play it. I had 3 creatures, so I paid 4 mana. X equals 3. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm targeting 3 things. Holy cow, I just got 3. I'm like, I just target 3 things that Gargos fights 3 times. Holy cow. I did not realize that was how that card worked. I thought it was like you get X +1/+1 counters on 1 target creature. Yeah. Nope, it's not. It's not how it works. That is such a great card.
Any time you have like target with X and you're then able to play Gargos. Ridiculously good.
So good.
Right.
So good. All right. Heroic Intervention.
Yes.
Heroic Intervention is just so good.
I'm like, what is the better protection card than this? Like,
it's so good.
Permanence.
Yeah, permanence.
For 2 mana.
That's the thing. Permanence.
Colorless and green.
Yep.
Instant. Permanence you control gain hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn.
Such a good card.
The only thing that gets around it is like sack, which obviously, and then exile, which it has to be mass exile at that point.
Yep. All right. So this one. All right. So we've got that one, and this one.
3, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just gonna talk about this card right now. Seedborn Muse. I don't know where to put this card. This is just such a good card. If you don't know what's
ramp.
Yeah. Seedborn Muse, 3 and 2 green for a 2/4 creature spirit. Untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. I mean, it's a screen staple is basically what it is.
Yeah.
It's so good. Okay, so I think we talk about the Fight Club cards first.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's just take that card out.
Which one? Shadow Spear?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about
doesn't
Shadow
matter.
Spear first.
It doesn't make sense.
So Shadow Spear is a great card.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially in a deck like this. So Shadow Spear is a 1 mana legendary artifact equipment. So you can find this off of Urza Saga. Same thing with Commander's Plate. Okay.
Yes.
Now this has equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. The lifelink on Gargos, every time he fights, you gain a ton of life. It's so crazy. Okay, but you can equip for 2. This part, do not overlook. You can pay 1 mana. Permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn.
Now, it doesn't have to be equipped on a creature in order to do this. You can
Correct.
just activate the ability to get rid of all of their hexproof and indestructible.
One thing that you need to pay attention to, though, is there are cards that like you can gain hexproof and indestructible. And so if you activate Shadow Spear and say, okay, my opponents, you've lost indestructible and hexproof, they can still gain it after that. So then you would have to activate Shadow Spear again after that. So keep that in mind and pay attention to that. Definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Fight Club cards. Okay, okay. The first one is Ulvenwald Tracker, 1 green mana for a 1/1 human shaman creature. You can pay 1 and a green and tap it. Target creature you control fights another target creature. Such a good card. It's the flavor on this is so good. The next one is Boxing Ring.
I love this card. So
Old
much.
Tracker? Yeah. So
I
good.
just love the artwork.
Yes.
Boris fighting a bear.
Yep. Yep. All right. So the next one is a new card. It's Boxing Ring. 1 and a green. 2 mana artifact. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it fights up to one target creature you don't control with the same mana value.
Oh.
The same mana value.
Okay.
So
you could like really
the thing
play
is
around.
now think about this though too. The Hydras.
Yeah.
If it's X and 2 green, Jim, what's the mana value?
So, all right. Let me see this real quick.
Okay, now hang on.
So yes, it does.
Now also it says you can tap it, create a treasure token, activate only if you control a creature that fought this turn.
Okay. So if we're talking about X and double green, right? While it's on the board, and this is when it pays attention to that, right?
It's when it's on the board.
Yes.
It's when it's on the
So
board.
it's 2 mana. X is 0
X
in
is
this
0.
case. But if there's ever a time where a card is talking about the mana value of it on the stack,
Yes.
X equals the amount that you spent for it.
Correct.
So if it was 8 and you had double green, well, now it's 10 mana value on the stack. Once it gets to the board, it is now 2 mana. 2 mana value.
Yep. So for an X and 2 green, if I paid 4 or didn't pay, with Gargos, that's a 4/4. That's eating every 2 mana value creature for the most
it's
part.
not killing a Goyf most of the time.
Oh yeah, that's true. The Tarmogoyf, yeah, that's true.
Goyf's up there,
Yeah,
but he's
Goyf is
also a
up there.
green card. So,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
You also don't play him in this format in general.
I've
You don't
never
play him in
seen
this format.
Tarmogoyf
Yeah.
in Commander.
Yeah, never.
Yeah, but anyway. Yeah, so Boxing Ring is a fun card, I think. This next one, so good. So good. Foe Razor Regent. 7 mana, 5 and 2 green.
Dragon.
For a 4/5 dragon. With flying, when Foe Razor Regent enters the battlefield, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. Whenever a creature you control fights, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it at the beginning of the next end step.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So a delayed counter. Okay. But still, 1 giving counters.
Fight.
Okay. And it fights. Yep. The next one, such a fun card. This is a land. It's Arena. You can pay 3 and tap. Choose one of your creatures and have your opponent choose one of his or her creatures. Both target creatures become tapped. Your creature does its power and damage to your opponent's creature, and your opponent's creature does its power and damage to yours. Okay, so this is a very old card, as you can tell. Pay 3, tap. You choose target creature you control. Have your opponent choose a creature they control. Yep. Tap both of them, and then they fight.
Yep.
So really good. So that can be used both defensively and offensively.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I can activate that on my opponent's turn before they go to attack. Have them tap one of their creatures. Yep. Basically. Okay. And now it is your opponent's choice.
Yep.
You don't get to choose. Your opponent chooses which creature it is.
Yep. Which it's also a good thing. Say you have a mana dork out that you're just like, I don't need this anymore. You can tap this down to force your mana dork to fight. Say they only have one big creature out there and they're like, okay, I need to block whatever his Hydras are. Right? You're like, no, you're going to tap that. Sure, my thing's going to die, but now we're getting in to kill you.
Yep.
Card's so good.
Yep. Is that your favorite card of those ones?
Artwork.
And
Artwork. Ulvenwald Tracker is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
And
it is.
Arena is just a monster.
Yeah,
of a card.
Arena is such a good card. All right, so that's those ones. As you can tell, like that wasn't a lot of cards there, but still great nonetheless.
But we also got to remember, every single time you target a creature with Gargos out on field, it's also fighting.
Gargos is going to fight. Right. So it's not like I need a lot of things to do that. Which, speaking of, we're going to talk about enablers, okay? Yep. The first one, Primal Bellow, 1 mana instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each forest you control. So this is the one where it's looking at the number of forests you control, but it's really just a cheap enabler to have Gargos fight. The next one is Colony Ambush, modal dual face card. 3 mana instant, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So it doesn't have to be Gargos. Then the back is a land. Okay. Solidarity of Heroes. Can pay 1 and a green, but also a Strive, where it says Solidarity of Heroes cost 1 and a green more to cast for each target beyond the first. So you can target multiple creatures with this card. And then it has choose any number of target creatures, double the number of +1/+1 counters on each of them. So again, you can target multiple things. Gargos will see all the targets.
Yep.
Okay. Next one, a great card. I really like this card. This is Cetizen Tactics. 1 and a green, also with Strive. Cetizen Tactics cost a green more to cast for each target beyond the first. Until end of turn, any number of target creatures each get +1/+1 and gain. Tap it. This creature fights another target creature.
So good.
So you can
I'm picking that one. Just hand it to me.
You can pick multiple targets with this. Gargos will fight off of the targeting, and they each gain. They can get +1/+1/+1 and tap it to fight. So it's such a great card.
This is my card.
Vastwood Fortification, another modal double face card. It's 1 green mana instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So another enabler, and then the back of it is a land.
Yep.
All right, the last two are probably the best ones, I think. The first one is Berserk. So 1 cost instant, 1 green. Cast Berserk only before the combat damage step. Target creature gains trample and gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is its power. At the beginning of the next end step, destroy that creature if it attacked this turn. It specifically says destroy, not sacrifice.
Yeah.
Destroy. So can you destroy something that's indestructible, Jim?
Dan, you cannot.
So I'm pretty sure it's destroy and not sacrifice.
Yeah, this is from Conspiracy.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was so long ago where it's like, oh, wording could be changed a lot. Destroy that creature if it attacked this turn.
So so I can cast that on something that's indestructible and then have it live.
Very good.
Or even if it dies, I'm really not that upset about it.
Very good.
So it's a great card. The last one, I love this card. Rancor. It is a 1 mana enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+O and has trample. When Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand.
Good card.
This is like
great card.
An infinite enabler almost. You cast Rancor, you're targeting with an aura. Gargos will fight off of that. So Gargos fights, You enchant one of your stuff, it dies, rankers back to your hand. You can cast it again. Gargos will fight. Oh, it's so good. I love that card. And in this deck specifically, I love that card.
I think I'm still going to be going with this card.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
What is it called again?
Setessan Tactics.
Setessan Tactics.
Yep.
The fact that you can just pump more mana into this and get more value from your Gargos and
so
all your
good.
things attacking, it's just like, at that point, it's just like mass destruction on the board. And I'm like, sign me up. Especially when you're like, oh yeah, we're going to target all this stuff. Gargos triggers 7 times. These all are going to trigger. I'm going to put this in, I guess the Gargos has to fight first and then this will go off to then fight stuff. So
yeah.
Stupidly good card, man.
Such a good card.
Stupidly good.
Yeah. All right. So the last group of cards we're going to talk about, these are the +1/+1 counter enablers and givers, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got quite a bit of cards to talk about. Now, this first one that I will touch on can actually go in a lot of different stacks here. It's Vigor. So Vigor is an all-star in a deck like this.
One of the best green cards.
So Vigor is a 6 mana, 3 and 3 green for a 6/6 creature, elemental incarnation. Trample. If damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. When Vigor is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library.
The card is so good, man.
So, especially in a deck where you're fighting a lot. Fight. Oh, you're going to try and damage me? No, Vigor's just going to give me counters. And oh, dude. Vigor is just amazing in a deck like this. Okay. This next card, one of my favorite new cards, especially from Kaldheim, it's Vorinclex. Not the really mean one.
This guy's a monster.
But this is Vorinclex, a monstrous raider.
Not the very mean one.
Not the very mean one. It's still mean, not very mean. Okay. So 6/6 legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. 4 and 2 green, so 6 mana. Trample and haste. If you would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. So it's doubling season, basically, on a creature. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. It's really great having Vorinclex out on board, and then when your opponent says, put a counter on my... No, you don't. You don't.
Oh, you tried to sack your land to give your god an indestructible counter?
No, you don't.
Did you, though?
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah. So Vorinclex, so good. I mean, Vorinclex is just a great card in general, right? Okay, so this next card... When I saw this card, I'm like, you are going in this deck. I don't care what I have to do, but you're going in. Avabrook Caretaker. 6 mana. 4 and 2 green for a 4/4. A 4/4, that's it. That's so bad. No, it's not. Creature, human werewolf. Hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. I mean, that's not bad, but 6 mana? 6 mana?
This card...
It also has Daybound. Oh, so if it has Daybound, that means it's got a backside.
Yeah, what does that backside do, Dan?
What's the Nightbound side? Hollowhenge Huntmaster, 6/6 hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof. And she herself has hexproof. That's not it. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Nightbound. Yeah. So good. When I had Avabrook Caretaker on board and she flipped, I'm like, all of my stuff has hexproof. And now I get all these counters. Oh, wait, I get 2. I don't get 2 counters. I get 4 counters because of a Vorinclex. Like, it is just so good. When I saw this,
stupidly good.
Exactly. When I saw this card, I'm like, this is definitely going in this deck. It has to. It absolutely has to. So Avabrook Caretaker, it's an all-star. All right, the next one, Turn Timber Symbiosis, the green sorcery modal The backside is a land. Sorcery, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card has converted mana cost 3 or less, it enters with 3 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So I'm paying 7 mana to get a creature out on board for free. It's good, but in a deck like this, just be careful. Like, you don't want to hit a Hydra, because then you'll get the 3 counters because because the Hydras are going to have converted mana cost 3 or less. But just be careful. I mean, it's still a great card. So I mean, that could be swapped out for a land, but yeah, think about it. Could be swapped out for an artifact, but I just do have it in the deck. So, all right, the next artifact, the Ozolith, legendary artifact. This is a fun one. Whenever a creature control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature.
Yep.
The Ozolith is a great card, especially in a deck all about counters.
Yeah, it's so difficult to get counters in this deck.
Yeah. So Ozolith is fun for sure.
Yep.
All right, the next one, Sword of Truth and Justice. A 3-mana artifact equipment. It has a equip cost of 2, and then the equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from white and from blue. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. So
More counters.
more counters.
But
yeah,
also
counters.
important, protection from white and blue.
Which is big. That's really great. Really good. All right, next one. New card from New Capenna, Fight Rigging.
Yay.
2 and a green, enchantment, hideaway 5. Look at top 5. Exile one of them face down. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter target creature control. Then if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost.
The thing I love about this card is that you're fixing fights in Hydra Fight Club.
Yeah.
When they're already fixed.
Yeah, already fixed. Yeah.
You're gonna win.
Yep. Yeah, so the flavor is totally there. Okay, the next one, Rite of Passage. This is a great one. Whenever creature control is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's just another enabler. And then we have 3 of the best +1/+1 counter synergy cards out there. Branching Evolution. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. Then we have Hardened Scales. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on a creature control, that many +1 +1/+1 counters are put on it instead.
Yep.
And then the Mac Daddy, Doubling Season. If an effect would cause 1 or more tokens... Okay, if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many instead. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on that permanent instead. So there are 3 cards that double the number of counters. Yep. I think there's 3, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay.
And yes, they all stack.
They do stack. So you need to do Hardened Scales first, get that additional first, and then double it. So that's important. That is very important.
Yep.
All right. I think, okay, of these ones.
Doubling Season,
really?
Hands down.
Is it? Okay.
It's just the card is too good.
It's stupid.
It
is stupidly good.
I really like the Vorinclex. The Vigor has been a staple in green for so very long.
Yep.
But like Doubling Season, not even if I'm talking not so much in this deck, it's just Doubling Season in general. The card is just phenomenal. You can see it everywhere, whether you're doing tokens or counters. Sometimes even both.
Yep.
And if you're doing both, you're for sure playing the card already.
Yep.
The card's stupidly good.
Doubling Season is so good. There's a reason it's a $75 card. Yeah. There's an absolute reason. And they just reprinted it not that long ago. Yeah. And that did nothing to the price, I don't think. Yeah, so it is stupid good. It is stupidly good. So all right, before we pick a card of the week, I want to give my final thoughts of the deck first, and then I want to get Jim's thoughts and opinions on it as well. All right, so this is one of my favorite commander decks I've ever built.
Yeah.
green is just one of my favorite colors in all of Magic, obviously. And so when I saw Gargos, I immediately fell in love and was like, this is I have yet to see anyone else build a Gargos deck. Yeah. I've yet to come across, and obviously you see them online, but I've never met
seen one in person.
I've never met another person who's played Gargos. Yeah. So from that standpoint, that's one of the reasons I love Commander is like being able to pick a commander that like you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I like playing commanders like that. But I also play Muldrotha, right? So
well, sometimes you just got to play good stuff.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That is true. That is true. So this is one of my favorites. So Gargos, just the creativity that I brought to the deck building was just, it's so much fun. And like with Commander, the ability to just always go back in and look and retool. It's so much fun. Always looking at the new sets that come out. One of my favorite things was like, and seeing the fight, I'm like, naming it Fight Club, I thought was really cool. And then just really taking that fight mechanic. And when I found Arena, I'm like, dude, that is so cool.
So good.
Such a cool card. So I immediately threw that in the deck. So yeah, I love this deck. Being able to find those cheap enablers to just target. And then I'm a big fan of being able to enable and then protect. Enable, protect. Yeah. It's this deck, I think you've seen it just by going through all these cards. It's super versatile in being able to really fill the board with huge things, but then also protect.
Yep.
Now, very weak against board wipes. Not much you can do about it unless you're able to do indestructible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But being able to protect all of your stuff at once, you can do it, but not all the time. Not all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So the one thing that doesn't have a lot of no board wipes, as you saw. And then being able to blow up.
You don't really want board wipes normally in this because you just don't want to kill your own stuff.
Right. But I mean, normally when you talk about building commander decks of what kind of cards you're looking for that you want to
have
include,
like 4 board wipes in it.
Right. So there's no board wipe. Well, no, there's a board wipe. I mean, Gargos is a board wipe.
Like you have ways to kill mass things.
Right. Yeah. So like your commander is a board wipe, right?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to artifacts and enchantment removal, there's ways, just not a ton.
Yeah.
But there are definitely ways in there to do it that are repeatable. That's the great thing.
If you have a way to give him infect, now you have a way to get around indestructible. Because giving minus counters gets around indestructible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is true.
Something to think about.
Yeah. So, this is just one of my favorite decks. Before I pick a card of the week, I want to hear Jim's final thoughts.
So I've told Dan this before, and if you guys listening, you've been here since like the 5th episode. I rarely bring this up to where green is my least favorite color in the game. And I don't even put it in terms of least favorite, most hated, and just color that I hate in general. And it's not even on my top 5 favorite colors in Magic. And there's only those 5 colors, guys. And, when... Normally, my biggest problem with green is there's no interaction, like at all, right? And the first time Dan brought this out, I'm like, okay, this is something else. And just watching him being able to just destroy things on the board, I'm like, this is great. This is great. I love it so much. So this is like the only green deck I could see myself playing. And if we're talking mono green, right? This is the only way I could see it being played. I'm just like, oh, I'm going to kill your thing. I'm going to now kill this thing. Target indestructible, fight first. All right, now you're not killing my guy. And I killed your other dudes. So now you're just really upset. So now I 2-for-1 you in mono green. And people are just getting salty.
They will get salty.
They're like, why do you keep killing my commander? Well, because you're not protecting it. So I'm going to target my thing. Screw your guy over again.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you countered the card targeting, it already targeted. So now Gargos is like, no, I'm going to go, fam. Let's get in there.
One of the things that I was a little worried about is I want to be able to make all of these effects repeatable. Okay. Yeah. And so my thinking was I want to play my cards more than one time. Okay. So I want to be able to get myself back from the graveyard. Like that was a big thing. And so there are cards out there where you can get stuff back from your yard. You've got Noxious Revival. You know, you have Balaged Sanctuary or Balaged Recovery. Yep. There are cards.
Is that the modal card?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There was another card called Once in Future. It's 4 mana instant. Pay 3 and a green. Okay. And you can get back 2 cards from your graveyard to your hand. Okay. It has Adamant where like if you pay at least 3 green, which on a green deck you're gonna do it. Yeah. Right. But it's 1 card into your hand, the other on top of your graveyard. Yeah. If you pay the Adamant cost, all 2 go back to your hand. So I was wanting to find a place for that card. So like that was one of them.
I think it's not in here.
It is not. It is not. I might take out Turn Timber Symbiosis for it, to be honest.
Because if you're able to then play that to go get a card that then returns a card from your graveyard, and then you're still getting that 1 extra card. All right, well now that the one that gives me 2 cards in the graveyard, I'm now going to spend the mana from that 1 card I put in hand to go get that one back. So you can now just recycle your stuff. And I think you for sure now, play the card.
The problem with Once in Future, when you play it, you exile it. Ooh. That's the problem with Once in Future. That's the problem with Once in Future.
Never mind, card's bad.
Yeah. So like I could find a place for Eternal Witness. Like that's a thing. But like Once in Future is just a very good card. It's a very, very good card. I wish
you could recycle it.
I know.
Be
yeah,
so good.
Yeah. So something to think about. And I think if I can crack that, then that'll really take the deck. Yeah. Really take the deck off. But so this is my beloved Gargos mono green Hydra deck. Yeah. All right. So since we've talked all about that, we're gonna jump right into the card of the week.
Real quick before we go into that.
Yeah.
Guys, if a deck can turn me from hating every single green deck out there card into what I would play it, you need to check it out.
Yeah. So one of the things I want to do is I want to see Jim play this deck.
One day I will.
He will. Absolutely you will.
No one's going to be ready.
Yeah.
No one's going to be ready.
And I just want to see it and just watch him just go nuts and have fun.
Yeah. Dan's like, I'll play mono blue and just let you kill everyone.
Yeah, exactly. I totally will. Totally will. But yeah, I definitely want to see Jim play this deck for sure. All right. So we're going to talk about the card of the week. Okay. We talked about all of these cards pretty much in depth, but the one that I want to talk about is one of my favorites is the Ozolith. The Ozolith is such a funny card. I remember when this came out, this was in Ikoria. Okay. So I'll read it again. It is the Ozolith. It's a 1 mana can be found with Urza Saga.
Yep.
It is a 1 mana legendary artifact. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, exiles, dies, gets bounced to your hand.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good one too. Just bounce to your hand too. If it had counters on it, you put those counters on the Ozolith. Okay. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. Get this. Tyrite Sanctum. Indestructible counter.
Yeah.
If that creature leaves the battlefield, that indestructible counter gets put on the Ozolith.
Yes.
Ooh.
You know what I was just thinking about? So you were saying it's searchable with Urza Saga. Yes. Also, when the constructs die, those 2 counters that they get on them go to the Ozolith. Is that what it's called?
The Ozolith.
Ozolith. Yes. So the constructs, when they leave the field, they're just like, oh, those
aren't counters.
They're not?
They just get +1/+1 for each artifact. Yeah.
All right, that would have been broken.
Yeah, that would have been broken.
So good.
That would have been cool though. Yeah, that'd have been really nice. Yeah. So the Ozolith is just it's a funny card that you can really play around with. Yeah. Right. And I think this deck really takes advantage. Really takes advantage. So I mean, you think about you have Greater Good on board. Okay. You have a sack outlet. Sack outlet for a Hydra that has 10 counters on it. Let's say I have Lifeblood Hydra that has 10 counters on it. I sack the Lifeblood Hydra, Sack the Lifeblood Hydra to greater good. Draw 10 cards, gain 10 life off of Lifeblood Hydra.
Move those counters.
Move the counters, draw 10 cards off of greater good,
Yep.
and then discard 3 cards. I've drawn 20 cards, gained 10 life, and then discarded 3 cards. And then those 10 counters that were on Lifeblood Hydra are now on the Ozolith.
Yep. Being ready for the next monster.
This is all pre-combat, by the way.
Yeah.
Post-combat. Now, hang on. Think about this. If you have Vorinclex or any token or counter doubler, those 10 counters go from 10 from the Lifeblood Hydra to 20 on the Ozolith.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure that's how it worked, even though it says move the counters, because like if we look at doubling season, if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent,
it does.
It does.
It does.
It does. It's just put. It does.
Wow.
So you turn those. I mean, let's think about this. Okay. Let's think about you've got Gargos on board. You play Rampant Rejuvenator, 3 and a green for 2 +1/+1 counters.
Yeah.
You've got Ozolith on board.
Yes.
Any counter doubler. Okay.
Yes.
So for 1 mana, you paid 1 green mana for the Rejuvenator for 4 counters.
Yeah.
2 off of the Rejuvenator, then 4 from the counter doubler.
Yes.
Vorinclex, Doubling Season, whatever, Branching Evolution. Okay. Sack it to greater good, or it dies, or you fight and it dies, for example. So you have 4 counters moved from the Rejuvenator that you paid 1 mana for. 4 counters moved to the Ozolith. 4 counters to 8 counters. Pre-combat. Okay. Now you go to combat. You have Gargos on board. You have 8 counters. Those 8 counters go to 16 counters on Gargos.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That for 1 mana.
Yeah.
For 1 mana. Now, granted, you had to pay the mana for Gargos, the Ozolith,
all the cards,
any of the token doubler or counter doubler, whatever. But 1 mana to turn X equals 2
to 16.
to 16. And not a lot of steps either.
Yeah, yeah. And then you just attack for commander damage at that point.
Yep. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So Ozolith is one of my favorite cards. What I think makes this just such a great card is it's not specifically +1/+1 counters. It's any counter.
Yeah.
You can have a trample counter, reach counter. What else?
Indestructible.
Lifelink.
Is there a hexproof counter?
Oh, that'd be so sick. That would be. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
I don't know.
That'd be sick. I gotta look into that hexproof counter.
You know, I think people were also playing this in was it Affinity, where they were playing like modular cards and Modern, and so since they would have other creatures that could then move their counters around, but sometimes there's no other creatures to move their counters around to.
Yeah.
So then it's just like, oh, puts it on this. All right, well, now when we're able to put it on a different creature, put it on that other creature. And now with the Urza Saga to be able to search for this, I don't know if people have tried it again.
I don't know.
Because it's been like since around Ikoria dropping that they had this, and Urza Saga wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah. So anyway, that is the card of the week, the Ozolith. All right. Well, Jim, what did you think? What's your final thoughts?
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
Yeah.
I'd give it a green stars out of 10.
Take that for what you will. So, all right. Well, that is the episode that we got for you today. Hopefully you all enjoyed our first Commander deck tech. Next week, Jim's going to talk all about Talrand, and then we will, we're going to pepper a few more of these throughout the coming weeks and months. Yeah. I'm finishing building a few more. I've got Coma. Coma's done, ready to go. I can talk about him in some coming weeks. And then Muldrotha's finishing up as well. And then I've got a few others.
And I got a deck I'm also working on.
Are you really?
Yes.
All right. I don't know if he's going to tell me. Well,
I could tell you.
Do you want to say now, or do you want to tell me?
You know what?
Offline?
I'll let people know right now that the color are Mardu.
Okay, for those who don't know what's Mardu.
Oh yeah, right. Black, red, and white.
Yep.
Those colors. I love just playing Rakdos something.
Yeah, Rakdos something. Yeah,
which
Rakdos is good.
Red and black plus another color.
Yep. So, all right. Well, that is the episode we got for you this week. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. Definitely let us know your thoughts. And then, especially this type of format. What I'm thinking about doing is doing these in a more digestible format as well as for shorter video content as well.
Yeah.
This is very much long form, but we like doing these long form type podcasts for this content. I think it's great. But let us know if you'd like something in a smaller bite-sized form for this as well. But before we get out of here, Jim, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram at Jim Morgan HNH.
You guys can find me on Twitter at _DG Campbell and on Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. Thanks everybody for being here. And you know what? You can find us, you can find Hobbies and Happiness over our website, www.hobbiesandhappiness.com. You can find links to all of our social platforms there, YouTube, podcast, everything you can see on there. Head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/hobbieshappiness. You can find everything there. And then, so thanks everybody for being here. And we will catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.